Hello again, YouTube. Once again, you should know by now, I'm very conflicting with time, I'm working, this, that and the other. I'm currently actually packing for holiday. I'm going to Serbia for 2 weeks, so I thought I might as well get one done as quick as I can before I go, otherwise I'm keeping you all in suspense. I'm still active, but very rarely. What I wanted to do this lesson, or this video should I say, it's one which I haven't really seen on YouTube as much, and I get loads of people asking me about this because, as I mentioned before, I play in shows, I play in different bands and all that, and whenever I'd play live I'd always have a certain style and a sound that I would create, and people would ask me, how do I get these effects, how do I get this quote-unquote Gothic type of effect? So I thought that I would actually give you the variations of what type of goth effects you can really get out of a guitar. How do you make it sound Gothic, and depending on what type of extreme to another. But before I do, I'll just show you quickly what my setup is, because everyone's setup is different to others. I like to keep my very minimum. I have a Vox V2 20 Plus amplifier. It's only 30 watts, but you'd be surprised how much impact it does. And you'd be surprised on the level capacity. I know different guitarists have their different preferences to which amps I'm going to play, but I've always stuck to a Vox because to me it gives off the type of sound I want compared to Marshall, Orange, or even the other ones. As for the effect that I'm using, I'm using my Boss ME70 guitar multiple. It's a complex little guitar pedal, but I think that for the effect that I want and what the effects it can give me, I think it's actually quite beneficial. And as you can see, it's set up ready to go, plugged into my guitar. I'll stop the rambling now and I'll get straight into it. I just thought I'd show you the little setup as some people will be interested. So one thing I want to explain first is some people people normally when they think of goth music, they'll think of the early 80s, late 70s type of proto-punk, post-punk type of sound. And the difference between what the punk guitar sound was compared to the post-punk guitar sound was, yeah, it still had a bit of distortion, it still had that raw taste to it, but with many post-punk guitarists they'll actually use more of a chorus effect instead of much of a distortion effect. It could still slightly be heard, but most of the time, and you'll hear this through different bands, I mean such as Bauhaus and Joy Division, as I'm going to be explaining in a moment, they'll tend to keep a bit of the chorus, a little bit of the distortion, but they'll heavily mask it with soft reverb, which is why you get that echoey type of isolated thing that you'll get from most goth songs you hear on guitar. And these are just a quick little, just me playing around. It's nothing really solidated. It's just something so you can kind of get closer to the original sound which they used. So, as I said, you keep this type of reverb, distortion type of effect, and obviously the joke is that it's not a goth song without too much reverb. It's true to an extent because that's the type of sound that kind of epitomizes what the umbrella term of goth is, this type of loneliness, isolated, echoey type of sound. And it's not just from the old stuff. You'll hear this in Fields and Nephilim music where they'll have a good balance between reverbed guitars, clean guitars as well, and distorted guitars. So it has that nice blend and mix, and obviously later on that's what would help to format the early pioneers of Gothic metal. So I'm just going to show you very quickly on this one the best way to get a type of distinctive guitar, that distinctive goth sound, as you would say, is normally playing on the last 3 strings, the G being high E. And because of how high the sound, it has more of an eerie taste to it. I mean, what I'm going to be playing for you now is just simply going up down the scales, using tones and semitones to get that major to minor effect, and most of the time that's what the goth scale, or guitarists who want to play goth use that scale. They'll normally go from tones and semitones to create that slight, well, eeriness, as well as the transition to major and minors. As you can see, you can kind of hear like the typical sound what Gothic metal would use, as well as what some eerie type of abstract sound that you'd normally get. I would like to also introduce, because now we just talked about the basics of like how reverb is used and can be here clean and with distortion. One thing which I would like to say, and this is something that I use a lot in my music, even when I was in my old band, the Acid Ballet, which was more kind of like shock rock, death rock concoction type of mixture. With my job in that role was you would have a heavier guitar, but you'd also have the guitar that would create the atmosphere, and the atmosphere was the part which I would play, and you would hear this in the early EP, which I would link down below, to the Antibody EP, which I was a part of. What I used a lot in this case scenario, I would mix a lot of reverb as well as tap echo delay. And tap echo delay is actually quite a good thing, because what it does, you would hold a note and then it would loop it, so you hear ding 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 ding, so it's almost a bit like an eerie horror movie type of sound. And it works in many senses, even when you're going down the scale, but also if you want to get just this atmospheric open, just kind of like just cement this eeriness that you would probably want to go for your song. What I tend to normally do is start from the bottom of the fret and work my way up, and not even pressing onto the frets, just gently rubbing my fingers, going upwards as I'm tremolo picking, which is where I just constantly play at a certain fast rhythm. And then obviously if you would add the tap echo delay, it would sound something quite like this. So already hearing this type of eerie built-up vibe, and this is one thing which I like to commonly use into this. What you can also use, and this can be very good, and The Cure used this in other early bands, and I know it's been used a lot in no matter what genre, metal, glam metal, rock, whatever, is just simply getting your pick and sliding it up the first three strings, the higher, thicker strings. And the slower you do it, the more creepier it becomes. It can be very boring depending on how much you want to emphasize it. It does the same trick. This next one I wanted to show you was just something that I tend to use a lot, especially within my new band, the KillBrides, which is more ethereal type of bass, but has a lot strong, darker presence. And I did this for a couple of shows when on our song Everything You Dreamed Of, where I'd grab a drumstick. I actually found this out through a guitarist who has his own channel. I'll send the link below, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's talking about the eerie sounds you can get. And I knew this already before I saw this video, but I thought that it would be good, just a little nod to show you. So I'll add the link in below just so you can see how he uses his effects and his settings to create more of an eerie sound to it. But what it basically does, and what I do, I'll grab the drumstick, and it's kind of like what Jimmy Page does with the violin on his songs. I'll just simply rest it across the strings, and I'll start using a slow circular motion to create this type of ghost wailing sound, and then I'll abruptly bring it all the way down to the lower, or to the higher frets, depending on what terminology you want to use. I say low frets if it goes down, high if it goes up, and I'll end up making it higher and higher and higher sounding, and even if you want, you can actually go past down the frets, just so it has that high octave range like a wail. Another good thing that I forgot to mention actually is when you're doing this, when you have your pedal, it's always good to put your pedal down so that nothing comes down, and you slowly raise your foot up, so that way it abrupts the sound, so it comes creeping out of nowhere. Now these next bits I want to show you, these are just stuff that I tend to do, and I guess you can kind of call it into like the death rock sound. I don't know if they actually use, I know they tend to use a lot of weird effects as well, such as distortion and chorus, but I like to use a flange effect, and flange effect and pitch shifts can really play a good part, especially if you want to really create like an eerie death rock type of vibe, especially if you're transitioning from a rhythm which is heavier power chords to this creepy flange octave sound. And a flange what it does is just basically adds a effect to it, which can work definitely, especially when you're playing octave chords and still using the tone to semitone effect. I think I used a little bit too much of the tap echo delay, so I just turned down the, took the tap echo off and just toned down the delay a little bit, because if you use too much delay, especially when you're using high distortion, it can sound very, very muddy. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to unwind it a little bit and just show you what it would probably sound like. This is just something I wrote up years and years ago, been meaning to really put it down onto something, but just to give you a little idea of how flange can work in this type of eerie, creepy death rock type of sound. Hopefully now that you can understand what I'm trying to say, my terminology is absolute crap. I just play the guitar, don't necessarily care about the overall theory of it. Pitch shifts can work on this one, where it basically overlays an octave, so you can end up having this type of dual sound effect. And that is it. I hope that me explaining this helps at all. I really wanted to get this one out of the way. Unfortunately, I didn't have too much time to plan it, because I said I'm very busy. I really hope that you enjoyed this. If you've got any more questions, I'm more than happy to ask, and please do try it. If you are inspiring to use like a gothic-y type of effect, or if you're in a goth band and you don't know how to really get this effect, hopefully what I've tried to explain to you helps, and if it does, let me know. Let me see how it does. Send some recordings if you wish. Unfortunately, I don't have much recordings of my own guitar effects on stage. So show me what you can do. I've shown you what I normally tend to use, and I hope that it helps. Anyhow, I'll hope be seeing you after I come back from holiday. I really hope that you enjoy the video, and I'll try to make probably a little update on my travels, or if you've got any ideas, just let me know. I'm more than happy for ideas. I hope you're going to try to make a few covers later on. I know someone's requested me to do the forest a good while back, and I'm very sorry I haven't got around to that one. So I might do it before I go, I might do it after I come back, so I'll let you know. Take care, YouTube.